Today is 1st of November, 2021, coming up 2022 in 2 months. Time is flying really like an arrow. And I did also yesterday a class about this Murli, so some of you might have heard this already, but just some sections of it. And I was talking about 3 specific areas that are covered by the Murlis, and one is to do with behavior modification. Be nice, be good, be sweet, don't be angry, be pure, all this. And then there are many references to bhakti, and there is gyan. So the pure gyan or nitya gyan that Sheikh Baba gives is compared and contrasted with bhakti in many ways. And we need to understand the difference because it's quite subtle. So the essence, sweet children, your behavior must be very sweet and royal. There should be no evil spirit of anger. And the question, what should you children pay attention to receive the reward for 21 births? And the answer, while living and doing everything in the world, your intellect should be connected in yoga, that means your focus of attention, with the true beloved. Do not have any bad habits due to which the Father's honor would be compromised. While living at home, live together with such love for each other that others see that you have good divine virtues. So when people come to centers, they see how do the people interact with each other, and they judge Baba on that basis. So that's important. The song is, awaken, O brides, awaken. The new age is about to come. Om Shanti. You sweetest spiritual children heard the song. You children must surely have understood the meaning also. So the meaning is to do with that we have to orient ourselves on the basis of confluence, age, and becoming ready for the new world, letting go of the old world, and especially preparing for leaving this body in probably uncomfortable circumstances. If you leave your body in very good circumstances, this is also a sign of very good karma. So the Father comes and tells you new things. So we have to distinguish between the concepts that come from bhakti and the concepts that come from Baba, because they're very close, but they're also diametrically opposed. You children heard these things of the new age for the new world 5,000 years ago, and you are now hearing them once again. In between, you heard the matters of the path of bhakti, and none of these things, neither gyan nor bhakti, exist in the golden age. There, you have the reward of the path of knowledge. So the reward of the path of knowledge is the status that you get and the sanskaras that you have. So you children are now earning a true income for the new world. Knowledge is said to be a source of income. So the inheritance that we get from Baba is the knowledge. And on this basis, we create pure karma. And on that basis, we get the position in the golden age. And so many births, 21 births. For some, study to become barristers or engineers so that they can also earn an income. And you study this so that you can become the kings of kings, the emperors. I always see Kyokoben as the emperor of Japan. Why not? You become the emperors, the kings of kings through this study. This is such a great income, huge income. You children now have faith. So what is the meaning of faith? It's basically, Baba speaks of faith in the intellect. That means you understand. And what you understand, you take on board. It's not like blind faith, which is you accept something without understanding how it can possibly be like that. If you have doubt, that means if you have some questions, you need clarification, that will come and it will become faith, that is clarity as you progress. The expression liberation in life in a second has been remembered. This is one of the aphorisms that Baba uses. He uses many aphorisms because the aphorisms are known by the devotees, accepted without question by the devotees, but nobody knows what it means. So this is Baba's starting point when he's teaching somebody to say, this, you know, this is so, but let me tell you what it means. So what it means is this: the moment you recognize that you belong to Baba and not to anybody else, then you become the masters of the inheritance, that is, the knowledge is yours, and all the implications of the knowledge are also yours. The Father, who is the creator of heaven, has come to make you into the masters. That means the owners. You children should have this faith. You also know that you have two fathers. Your physical father, and the other is the spiritual father, whom you call the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul. So as a human being who has a father, you are owned by that father according to the feudal system. So the feudal system is what was there in the world before anything like democracy came along. So the feudal system means the king is the owner of all the people, and the parents are the owners of all the children, just like you have ownership of animals. So they have ownership of people. And then later on, when the system of democracy came up, it was made clear that you cannot own another human being. But the political system, legal system, and social system are, especially in India, they're really diametrically opposed because the social system there is still quite feudal. And people in Gyan, some assume the feudal system and some assume the democratic system, and every so often it becomes a clash. And so Baba gives a very interesting solution to this, saying, you know, once you realize the Supreme Father, you belong to him. That means no human being has any rights over you, which means that they can't abuse you in any way unless you give them your full permission to do that. So this is an interesting situation. So one is the physical father and the other the spiritual father, whom you call the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul. You say, "Oh God, the Father." A physical father can never be called the Supreme Father. The Supreme Father always is higher than the physical father, because he's also the father of that physical father. So that physical father has to do what the Supreme Father says anyway. Only the one Father, Supreme Father from beyond, is the giver of peace and happiness for all. So the function of a father is to give you your identity and to take care of your needs, your home, clothing, food, transportation. All of this is provided to you by the father. So the father is also called the provider. So everyone in the golden age is happy. That means prosperous and healthy. The other souls are in the world of peace. In the golden age, you have peace, happiness, wealth, bodies that are free from disease, etc. You have everything. So all of this is given to you by Shiv Baba, by giving you the knowledge in the confluence age and the power through yoga, and the consequences is all this in the golden age. So everyone calls out to the most beloved father. So he is quite well aware that he's most beloved because he gives all these things. The sages and sannyasis perform intense bhakti, but they do not know who they are communing with and what they are making that spiritual endeavor for. So that's called tapasya, or there are other words for spiritual endeavor. And so their spiritual endeavors are to go to the element of light, the element of Brahm, and merge into it, except that they cannot merge into it. So they're trying to do something impossible, which means it can't be done. And their sins also cannot be cut away by remembering the element of Brahm. So the element of Brahm is also part of matter. You have gross matter and the element of Brahm, which is also, I would say, we could also call that antimatter. So the totality of matter and non-matter is the material universe. So they don't go to God. They can't comprehend souls. But also the soul world is this element of Brahm. And when you do these kinds of hatha yoga spiritual practices, you can quite realistically, quite frequently get projected into this dimension of light. And I know that because I've experienced that. So the Father says, constantly remember me alone. Am I the Almighty Authority, or is the element of light, this place of residence of the souls, is that the Almighty Authority? So the element of Brahm is called the Brahma Mahatattva, the element of light, the sixth element, where all the souls dwell. And those people, they go there, they experience that light, and they think that's good. And it seems like that, but it isn't that. So just as the people of Bharat say that Hinduism is their religion, and that word Hinduism is not a religion that was founded by anyone, but the word Hindu comes from the river Indus, the Hind River. And so Hinduism refers to the beliefs and practices collectively of the people who live in that region. And so that's called Hindustan, or India and Hindustan, same thing. Hindi language, the language that is spoken in that region. So in exactly the same way, they think of the element of Brahm, which is a location, to be God. So that is called Brahmand. So the word and means egg. And And so if you have a soul in the element of light, that soul, in order for you to depict it, has to have a shape. And so the form of light, the aura around it, is oval formed. And so the souls are points of light in that element of light. It's not that the element has the shape of an egg, although in our pictures it always does, but it doesn't have an outline, but it does have an inline, very, very subtle, but where the soul and the Brahmand meet, there's an inline, and that's egg-shaped. So that's why it's called Brahmand. So this is the human world, and Brahmand is a completely different dimension from the material world. No one knows what a soul is. And they say that an extraordinary star sparkles in the center of the forehead. Then they say that souls have the form of a thumb. So the thumb, when you make a thumbprint, it's about oval shaped. It's quite big. And in the beginning of Gyan, all the BKs thought that souls were thumb shaped. But then in the 1960s, about 1963, Shiv Baba said, actually, it's not. It's an invisible, infinitesimally small point of light. And everybody said, what? Why didn't you tell us before? And he said, well, you wouldn't have been able to conceptualize it, but now you can. It's interesting. And so the Gyan has been developing and developing and developing over time. And every so often, when Shiv Baba would say something that didn't fit with what had gone before, then Brahma Baba made everybody destroy all the previous Murlis. And this is why there are very, very few Murlis from the 1930s, 40s, etc. I saw one once from the 1940s, totally different from what we get now, totally different. It was more like a kind of, that there is a poem called Gitanjali. Have you come across this? So the Murli was a bit more like that, which is very beautiful, like a hymn to God kind of thing. So it changes over time. So they say the souls are thumb-shaped, but the Father says the soul is an extremely subtle point of light that cannot be seen with your physical eyes. People try very hard to see and catch hold of a soul. And when someone's leaving the body, they think they can catch the soul, but they can't. No one knows anything about the soul. You children know that you have now become the Father's helpers in making Bharat into heaven. The Father comes only in Bharat, and it is in Bharat that people celebrate the birth of Shiva. So Shivratri or Shiv Jayanti. And the importance of celebrating somebody's birth is that it proves that they exist. Because if you don't have a birth certificate, the government will say you don't exist, even if you're standing in front of them. So Christ came and he left, and the Christians celebrate Christmas, which is the birthday of Christ, Jesus, actually. They get mixed up between Jesus and Christ. So the actual arrival of Christ in the body of Jesus came much later. And Baba very often mentions that there is a deep connection between Christ and Krishna. And what you can see is most of the stories about Jesus are identical with the stories about Krishna. And so they seem to have been lifted from the ancient scriptures and assigned to Jesus as a way of proving that he is the instrument of God. Otherwise, you couldn't really make it into a religion. So Christianity was not a religion when Christ was around. It became a religion in, I think, the first Council of Nicaea, which was 300 years after Christ. And then there was a second Council of Nicaea, which was 800 years after Christ. And the Christianity that people have now comes from there. So it's actually quite different. And they made the Bible and all that. So all of these religions that started in the Copper Age actually got properly formulated and institutionalized in the way that we know them today in the beginning of the Iron Age. So they know, the Christians know when Christ came on the earth, but the people of Bharat do not know when Shiv Baba came, and they also don't know when Krishna came. So Baba says they don't know anything about anyone. That means any of the gods and goddesses and God. All the praise that they sing is applied to Krishna. And they have a little baby Krishna for the Krishna's birthday, and they rock him in a cradle and do all various interactions with this image of Krishna. But they don't actually know when he was born. Mostly they say that he related the Gita in the Copper Age, but Krishna is not present in the Copper Age. He got born at the beginning of the Golden Age. And then there is a big scripture of many volumes called the Bhagavad, with all the stories of Krishna. And these stories actually are stories about Shiv Baba interacting with the BKs in the Confluence Age. And they got altered and described as being about Krishna in the Copper Age. But all these activities are actually the activities of the Father. And this is why it is said of him, only you know your ways and means. It's not ways and means at all. It's gut and mutt. And gut and mutt is your ideas and your destination, or the consequences of your ideas, which is pretty different from ways and means. Now, Krishna is a prince of the Golden Age, and his mother had a vision that she would get a child, and she was virgin. So the same story about the Virgin Mary getting a vision, she got the annunciation from an angel who told her, you're going to get a child. And then this has just lifted the story of Krishna's mother and put on the Virgin Mary, because at that time they couldn't have a child like that. And there in the Golden Age, they also leave their bodies. They get a vision. Now I'm going to become a child, and then they leave their body. So you have to have a reason for leaving your body. So in the Iron Age, it's usually some illness or accident, or your body just finally fizzles out and won't work anymore. But in the Golden Age, your body is good, so you only leave it because you get a vision that says, okay, now you can go. And then you voluntarily leave it. So each one sheds one body and takes another. And the example for that is the snake. So a snake has to shed his skin. And every so often his skin gets not quite good. And then he thinks that I should come out of it. And a new one is there underneath it. So the sannyasis don't really have the right to give this example because they don't believe in the soul. So they can't talk about leaving one body and taking another. Use it and buzz this knowledge to people who live a vice-based life to make them sato pradhan from tamo pradhan. So your business is to buzz the knowledge and transform human beings into deities. So there's also the same story as there in the Bible as well, more in the Old Testament. And it's about people who are crawling. And so there is this expression about people like worms, because worms can't fly. But any insect starts off as a little seed, then it becomes a larva, which is a worm, and then it goes into a pupa, which is a chrysalis, and then it gets wings and flies around and the whole thing starts again. So this thing called Brahmari is not a buzzing moth, but it's a bee. And all the bees have to feed the larva because they're sitting in little hexagonal cells with no food around. Other insects are put, their seeds are put somewhere where there's food so they can feed themselves, but not bees. So you have to be like a bee and buzz the knowledge, and gradually they will get there. And they would transform from being like worms who are stuck to the ground to those people with wings who can come off the ground. So that is what is meant by changing the ordinary mortals into deities. Then the example of the tortoise is also for this time. So the tortoise, you'll find a tortoise in the Shiva temple, and the tortoise refers to the internalized stage. So you have to practice as a yogi being inside the shell, and then you come out to do something, then you go back in again. So this means after performing your different actions for whatever time you have, go inside and remember the Father. You know that this is your last birth and the play has to end. Even bodies are now old. Karmic accounts of the body have to be settled. When you do become Sato Pradhan, you also reach your Karmatit stage. And then you will not be able to stay in your current bodies because there's a polarity between the impure body and the pure soul. And whenever you get this polarity between impurity and purity, it splits. And this is also what happens when you split. The world also splits. And so that your Karmatit stage brings on the destruction. So you will shed your bodies and the war will begin. All the bodies will get destroyed and all the souls will return home like a swarm of mosquitoes. Have you seen a swarm of mosquitoes? Mosquitoes. You can have a swarm of bees or locusts. And when you get a swarm, it's very scary. If you're in the middle of it, you have to be very quiet, otherwise they will eat you up. No one can return home without becoming pure. So the soul in the soul world is absolutely pure. And so either you get pure by yoga or by some horrible suffering, and then you go. So this is the land of sorrow established by Ravan, whereas Shivalaya was established by Ram. Shivalaya is not the temple of Shiva, but the golden age. There's no temples of Shiva there, but it was established by Shiva, so it gets called Shivalaya. And then Vaishalaya is like a brothel. So in fact, the name of the Supreme Soul is Shiva, not Rama. All the deities reside in the golden age, Shivalaya. Then on the path of devotion, they build temples to Shiva in which they keep the image of Shiva. This, the body of Brahma, is the throne of Shiva. So the soul is seated on this throne. throne of Brahma Baba, seated on the body of Brahma Baba. And then the father comes and sits next to this one. So two of them sitting on one chair. And he teaches you. But he doesn't stay in this body all the time. When you remember him, he comes. Sometimes he comes when he wants to come, but pretty difficult for Brahma Baba because Shiv Baba could come anytime. So Brahma Baba had to be very conscious. And when Shiv Baba would come in his body, it was like a massive energy that was very hard to hold, but Brahma Baba had enough strength to hold it. The father says, I am your unlimited father. You are to receive the inheritance from me. Brahma is not the unlimited father. Therefore, you have to remember me. You sweet children know that Baba Shiv Baba is the ocean of knowledge and the ocean of love. So you children must also become oceans of love. Husband and wife do not have true love for one another. They think that the vice of lust is love. But Baba says, no, lust is your greatest enemy and it causes you sorrow, pain, suffering, difficulties from the beginning through the middle to the end. The deities were viceless, and this is why the women say, I would like a child like Krishna or a husband like Krishna. So they remember the land of Krishna. And the father is now establishing the land of Krishna. You yourselves can become like Sri Krishna or Mohan. Mohan is another word for Krishna. Means the most attractive one. There must be other princes and princesses too. So you are becoming all of those here. And there is also a list of those. There are 8 beads of a rosary, and the rosary of 8. Then there's the rosary of 108. And people also wear a ring of 9 jewels. So who are those 8? And who is the 9th one, the one in the middle, Shiv Baba? Only you know that we are becoming jewels through the sweetest father of all. The father says, children, interact with each other with a lot of love. Otherwise, you will defame the father's name. What happens when a BK is not nice to another BK, as they say, you call yourself children of God? I don't think so. And in that way, Baba's name is defamed. So those who defame the Satguru cannot achieve a high status. Shrimat. Give everyone the mantra, remember the one father, and the alloy will be removed. Interact with everyone at home with such love that others believe that you do not have any anger, but you do have a lot of love. Anger means aggression. So if you behave aggressively, then people will say, what sort of yogi are you? If you drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, etc., these are not good habits. And so you have to renounce those habits, addictions. Divine virtues are to be cultivated here. It takes effort to establish a kingdom. The people who are the founders of other religions do not establish a kingdom. The kingdom gets established much later on. The souls who belong to that religion, they keep coming down until the very end. And once there's enough of them, then the kingdom is created. But you are creating your reward for 21 births, and many storms of Maya will come. Because when you're creating a kingdom, there's always power struggles all over because somebody wants to be on top. Everybody wants to be on top. So that creates power struggles. So you have to handle that. Nevertheless, you still have to make effort and imbibe divine virtues. If you speak in anger aggressively, then people will think that you have an evil spirit inside you. Because when people do get possessed by an evil spirit, they become extremely violent. So sometimes this happens. So if you do that, then it means that you have compromised the honor of the unlimited Father. So then, how could you claim a high status? So become very sweet and stay free from any temptation. So the temptation is also temptation to boss people around or be horrible to people. There's also temptation. So while living here and doing everything, your yoga, that means your focus of attention, has to be connected to the beloved. And Baba has said, remember me, and your sins will be burnt. So burning sins means that they're deactivated. If you burn a seed, it won't grow. And sin is the sanskara to repeat that negative action. So if you have very powerful yoga, it deactivates that seed, and that's called burning. And this is called the fire of yoga. There is no need for any hatha yoga here. Keep your body healthy because it is your most valuable body. Also, eat pure food. Look at what is offered in bhog to the deities. Go and see that at Srinath Dwara. So that's a very nice, good vegetarian food made with lots of ghee, etc. You probably get rather fat if you eat that. And the people of Bengal offer a goat as bhog to Kali. So goats, buffaloes, all kinds of animals. So you go to Calcutta to the temple of Kali, there's blood all over the place. And in Bengal, they also give fish to the departed spirits in bhog. And they believe that if they don't do that, then those spirits would get upset. So someone started that system and it carried on. But in the kingdom of deities, no sin is committed. Nobody kills any animals. That is the kingdom of Ram, the kingdom of God. Here, the actions become sinful actions. So an action in itself is neutral. How does an action become sinful is connected with why you do it. So, you know, if an animal is injured, badly injured, you have to kill. Otherwise, it's terrible for that animal. But if you want to eat it, you don't need to kill. In the Golden Age, actions are neutral. Karma is neutral. And that's because it's automatic. The sanskaras of pure karma created in the Confluence Age carry on in the Golden Age. The devotees go to Haridwar, the gateway of Hari. So Krishna is referred to as Hari, but Krishna actually lives in the Golden Age. And in fact, the name Hari refers to Shiva, because Hari means remover of sorrow. But they put the name of Krishna in the Gita, and so then they think Krishna is Hari. If you read through the Gita, there are many expressions for the speaker of the Gita. And Krishna is one of them, but there are many others. And most of them actually refer to Shankar. or to Shiva. So you can actually prove pretty easily that the speaker of the Gita can't really be Krishna. So the people on the path of devotion, they continue to say whatever enters their minds. Could be anything. Oh, God comes in a crocodile. Okay, wait a minute. The Father says, I come at the confluence age to make the old world new. Ravan is your old enemy. People burn the effigy of Ravan every year, and they spend a lot of money on that. But it's all a waste of time and a waste of money. They make the images of so many goddesses in Bengal, and they feed them, worship them, and then sink them in the ocean. And there is a song based on that. You children have to become very sweet. Do not speak in anger. Also, do not sulk from the Father. If you stop studying when you sulk, it means you are putting an axe to your own foot. So in English, we say you are cutting off your nose to spite your face. That means you're destroying your honor. And cutting your own foot off with an axe is not a very good idea, right? You won't be able to function. So you have come here to become the masters of the world. The emperor is Sri Narayan, and the empress is Sri Lakshmi. But Sri Sri is the title of Shiv Baba. Shri Shri, the purest of the pure. Deities are referred to as Shri, Shri Krishna, Shri Narayan, etc. Shri means elevated. Now just think about what you were before you came into the knowledge. Look how Maya had scalped you. So your hair is also a symbol of your spirituality. That's why BK sisters that have long hair, and it used to be open, and they tied it up because the society doesn't like open hair. So Maya scalped you, and look what she made you into. It's like slaves and poor. Bharat was so wealthy. And how did Bharat become poverty-stricken? What happened? You know what happened? The kings were set against each other, and then they lost power. So they don't understand anything. You now know that you were deities, and then you became warriors. They say each soul is the Supreme Soul. Otherwise, the meaning of Hum So is so clear. I am what I was. I am that deity who became that Kshatriya, who became that Vaishya, who became that Shudra, who became this Brahman. Hum So. But those people say that everyone has only one human birth. You have to pass through all the animals and birds and whatnot, and then you become a human being. That's the top. But if you don't get a very good human birth, which a lot of people don't get, then you start all over again. A bit hard. So the Father explains that no, you are human souls, and you take 84 human births. And out of those 84 births, this birth of the confluence age is the invaluable one, the most valuable. It is the time when you receive the inheritance of heaven from the unlimited Father. You are the children of the very royal Father, and so you should have so much royalty in you. Royal people Never talk loudly, aggressively, etc. In the world, there is so much upheaval in every home, conflict, fighting. There isn't anything like that in heaven. This Baba, Brahma Baba, belonged to the Balbachari group. And there is so much difference between the Golden Age deities and the impure Vaishnavas of today. So the Balbacharis are Vaishnavas. That means in Hinduism, you have the Shaivites and the Vaishnavites. So the Vaishnavites believe in Krishna and the Shaivites believe in Shiva. So the Vaishnav people are very firm about their purity. But then he says, the Vaishnavas, you can't say they don't indulge in vice. They have to reproduce, right? So everyone in Ravan's kingdom is born through vice, through sexuality. In the Golden Age, they are completely viceless. So they're all born through the power of yoga. And also they're becoming, you are also now becoming completely viceless and also becoming masters of the world through the power of yoga. So your behavior should be very sweet and royal. Do not debate or argue over the scriptures. When people debate the scriptures, they start beating each other with sticks. And those poor people can't be blamed. They don't have any knowledge at all. This is spiritual knowledge, which you are receiving from the spiritual Father. He is the ocean of knowledge, and he doesn't have a bodily name because he is, it says here, a subtle image, but he's not a subtle image. He has a very subtle form. So an image is a picture, and he doesn't have one, just the light. He says, my name is Shiva. I do not take a physical body, and I do not have a subtle body. So Brahma, Vishnu, Shankar, they're subtle bodies, but Shiva Baba, no body at all, incorporeal. I am called the ocean of knowledge and the ocean of bliss. Look at what they wrote in the scriptures. They said that Hanuman was the son of the wind. How can a child be born from the wind? So the wind is air and it's your voice. So we actually get born through the words. They say of God that he incarnates in a crocodile and a fish, and they have insulted him so much. There must be a temple of crocodiles in India somewhere, right? Yeah. Well, there should be, because if they believe that God incarnates as a crocodile, some people would do that. And maybe fishes also. And I know there is a temple of bees because I met one of the priests from that temple one day in an airplane. So you insulted me so much by following these devilish dictates. Devilish dictates means asrimat, means the opposite of shrimat. You were not satisfied by claiming that I have 24 incarnations, and in addition, you said that I am in every pebble and particle. So these scriptures have been written from the Copper Age onwards. So most of the scriptures that you get today are what were made in the Iron Age from the Vedic India time. At first, there was only the worship of Shiva, and the Gita was also written later. The Father now explains to you all this is an eternal play. So anything at any time is connected with the past and with the future. So though in the Gita, they talk about the Mahabharata, they also talk about the Ramayana inside the Gita. So I have now come to make you into the masters of the world. Therefore, you should follow the Father fully. You should have a very good character. It is also a wonder to see what exists at the end of the Iron Age and what you will see in the Golden Age. Bharat is insolvent in the Iron Age and becomes solvent in the Golden Age. And at that time, there are no other populated places. The episode of the Gita is being repeated now. Acha. To the sweetest beloved, long lost and now found children, love, remembrance, and good morning from the mother, the father, Bapdada. And the spiritual father says namaste to the spiritual children. The spiritual children say namaste to the spiritual father. So the essence for Dharna, we are the children of the royal father. Therefore, our behavior has to be very royal. Do not talk loudly, aggressively, this and that, shouting. Become very sweet. Secondly, do not sulk from the Father or with each other. Do not sulk and then stop studying and renounce all your bad habits, your addictions. And the blessing is, may you be loving to God. And by having the awareness of the company of the Almighty Authority, chase away all your problems. The children who are loving to God always keep the one they love with them. And this is why no problem comes in front of them. Problem comes, but you are not afraid of it. Problems cannot stay long in front of those who have the Almighty Father with them. There's a song about the storm. What can a storm do to the one who is with God? When problems arise, finish them then and there, and they won't increase. Now you must exercise birth control for problems. Finish them off. Always remember, you have to bring completion close and chase away problems from a distance. So there was one Avyat Murli where Baba suddenly announced Samapti. Do you remember that? I was there in that Murli, and when he said that, everybody looked at each other. What? Samapti is finished. Just like that. And there were subsequent Avyat Murlis, but like the real ones were pretty much finished then. So just he started suddenly and he finished suddenly. Samapti, but we're still here and destruction is not yet. So people said maybe it wasn't Samapti after all, but I think it was. So you have to bring completion close and chase away problems from a distance. A slogan: do not make effort to be loving, but make effort to be detached, and you will automatically be loved. This is quite an interesting point, because people want to be important. People want a lot of people to be with them. And so then you do things to buy people. And bribery and corruption is a very commonly used way to get people to be your supporters. And but you get into problematical karma when you do that. And you find yourself in a situation where you have to do quite negative karma to keep the thing going. And then it adds up, and then it comes back and hits you in the face. So if you are detached, that means that you're not going to depend on people being your support system, because with people at this time, there's always some kind of karmic bondage. There's always some kind of problem that happens, because people cannot be your supporters, actually. Your support is God. So there was this expression in the Murli yesterday, ek bal, ek bharosa, ek mat. You remember that? One direction, one power, one support. And, you know, when we become body conscious, then the mind immediately goes to who is going to look after me or be my supporter or something like that. And then when you experience an impulse like that, which can happen very easily when you feel weak or you're not well or something, you're not in your power. And this is a very important test. And Baba gives us tests of faith. And today Baba took up the word faith in the Murli. And you need to have faith that your support is Baba. And if you have this expression, ek mat, which is one direction. So one direction means, what does he tell us? And he says, follow the Father fully. So we have to be soul conscious, because we are souls. And we have a very strong, heavy weight of karma on our heads, which is difficult to discern because it doesn't always manifest itself. But it does drive us. And it drives our instincts and reactions. And we don't generally attribute how we're functioning to our negative karma because it's not visible. And sometimes you might, I don't know, you might experience that there's like two people inside you. And one of them is the spiritual you, and the other one is the body conscious you. And they're like two different people, and they behave differently. And I think it's quite difficult to find a way to separate the two. And when you're linked with Baba and you're soul conscious and you do something, you're like a different person from when you're just in your, what he calls the ordinary stage. So your ordinary stage is you're normal, you're body conscious, you're a person like everybody else, you're not particularly linked with Baba. And then you do ordinary things in the ordinary way, in the ordinary world, and that's ordinary and normal. And Adi Janki used to tell us quite often, don't be ordinary. And we used to wonder, like, what is she really talking about? Don't be ordinary. Because you have to be simple. Sadharan is simple, but then sadharan is also ordinary. And so I think that it is possible to notice when you're being extraordinary and when you're being ordinary. But the problem with being extraordinary is you don't quite believe it. Have you experienced that? When, like, sometimes you just have to do something for Baba, with Baba, whatever, and you become like something else. And he says, that's the real you. But because of the power of karma, because of the power of, normal life, I think people, if you stay like that in ordinary circumstances, it looks funny. And so what to do about that? So maybe a good way is to be pretty introverted so that you can be in contact with your extraordinary self without expressing it. And because we are actors, we have to perform, and we have to perform appropriately for the circumstances. So when we are in that high stage for some special circumstance, it looks okay because it's appropriate. But then in everyday situations, we have to be, I think, you have to figure out how to do this, but you have to be really in contact with that greatness, your greatness, but without exposing it or expressing it overtly. Maybe we have to keep it just as a perfume, so that you're doing something ordinary, just being normal, but yet there is a feeling that people get from you. When we went to Anubhuti yesterday for the Diwali celebration, actually we went Saturday evening, and then Elizabeth said, when you all came in, and there wasn't anybody to greet us or anything because we just showed up, but she said, when you came in, we could feel it, the vibration, and you brought in a wave of something. So I thought, that's nice, that's good. Because I think when you really grow your spirituality, it should be there as a feeling, but it shouldn't be. There are some people who make their practice of soul consciousness very overt, and times when it shouldn't be overt. Have you seen that? Have you noticed that? No? Yeah, I have. And it just looks funny. It looks artificial. It looks weird. And people don't really like it because it seems put on, And I think that it's an important part of our practice to really be in our high stage, but to keep it internalized so that it's not put out. I think it's part of being a great actor. There are great actors in the world of theatre and the world of cinema. And those who are great actors, they're always great actors, but they don't show it unless they're on stage. Because if you start performing as the Terminator when you're not on the film set, that's going to look pretty weird. And it happens in theatre or in cinema actors that they take on the character that they're playing, and they play that character when they're not on set. And then it's really something else, something wrong. And I think part of our practice needs to be that these two people that we are, the body conscious me and the soul conscious me, I mean, gradually they have to become one, definitely, because we have to become our real self. And Baba talks about swadharma, the dharma of the self. And he says, okay, your swadharma is peace. And peace, shanti, means to me three things. One is stillness, one is silence, and one is peace. So we have to be like that. And this tortoise example that he said today, tortoise is inside. So we have to be inside. And then when we have to do something, we have to do it appropriately. But still that spiritual feeling should be maintained. And then the sort of body conscious self, which is also called the false ego. And the false ego is sometimes very, it's like a flip-flop between superior and inferior. And so sometimes in body consciousness, you make yourself less than. You diminish yourself, you hide yourself. And that's also called ego. And sometimes you're like out there and pushy and all that. That is also ego. But usually people think of the pushy side as the ego, which Baba talked about in the Murli today as being aggressive. So, you know, I think there's a big difference between the word anger and the word aggression. Because if you feel angry and you suppress that anger, then it will become an illness. You will have to go to hospital because you are not, you're not processing it, but you're holding it down, and so it will come out somewhere else. And then sometimes people, they act out and sometimes they act in. So this is anger. And if you say to somebody, you should not be angry, you're basically telling that person to suppress their emotions, and that's extremely unhealthy. So that it won't really work. But if you use the word aggression, I think it's a bit clearer that you do not behave in an aggressive manner. So you may be angry, but if you're angry, it's like a reality. It's data. You feel angry. Somebody annoyed you or did something really bad or whatever it is, but you feel angry. So when you feel angry, you get an energy, an emotion that comes up, and if you don't know how to manage it, it'll come right out and create a big drama. And so a lot of people, they suppress it, and it's as bad to suppress it as it is to express it, and possibly worse. So suppressing your anger is really not the solution. And so we need to think about and practice that what do you do with all this energy that is negative energy that comes up and wants to express itself as, you know, full on anger or upset or whatever. And so suppressing it is not the solution, but it's like pain, because it's a response to some stimulus, something you heard, something you saw, something someone did, something someone said, and it triggers this emotion. And so that's also called, it triggers your ego. Either you put yourself down or you put yourself up. And BKs hear this all day long. Don't be angry, don't be greedy, don't be attached, don't be all of this. And so the natural response to that is to suppress. And it creates a very explosive situation, because any type of force that you suppress is going to keep growing, and your amount of energy that you need to keep suppressing it is sometimes going to be much more than you actually have. So then at that point it bursts and goes all over the place. And especially when you are not well, because when you're ill, you don't have the same ability to suppress as when you're well. And so therefore, you don't have such control over your emotions. So controlling your emotions is like suppressing them. And I think in spirituality, we are not really in the business of self-suppression or suppression of anybody else, but we have to process it. And so when you have pain, physical pain, it's challenging your tolerance level. And Baba gives us powers. We have to apply our powers to these things. So of course the power of tolerance is quite relevant in this. And what is the power of tolerance? It's not the same as suppression, although a lot of people do take it that way. There's also the power of accommodation. The power of accommodation, I think, is quite an interesting one to work with in this. So accommodation, the power of accommodation is to do with flexing with something that's unbearable. In martial arts, they use the energy of the other person to defeat the other person. And so that is, in a way of taking energy that's being directed against you and moving it so it goes back to the source. So this they do in martial arts. And when you experience pain, it could be from your physical body giving you pain, or it could be someone who says something that's very painful, or a trigger your anger. And the power of accommodation is like if you say you have a size where your being fits in that bucket, say, and the bucket has its limitations, and you can handle only so much as will be handled by that bucket. The power of accommodation is to expand yourself so that you're able to accommodate to an unlimited extent. And I think you can use the power of accommodation along with the power of tolerance to handle your this energy of anger, because it's also, you can compare it with the electric shock, because if you get electrocuted, it's a big amount of electricity that has to go through you. And if you're on the electric chair getting electrocuted and killed, then the shock, the voltage is such that the physical body cannot handle it, and so you die. But anger is a little bit like that, but it might make you kill somebody else and then kill yourself. So it's a little bit similar to that. But when you use the power of accommodation, you're kind of expanding yourself and not resisting the thing that is triggering you, but you're allowing it to pass through you. And then I think that is a very good way to work with these very strong emotions that come. And getting angry is a normal reaction to a threatening situation. So if you feel threatened with somebody attacking you, then you defend yourself by being aggressive back. This is very normal. But then in BK, Baba will say, well, if you do that, it doesn't look good. And people don't like it. And everybody gets upset. And then it gets very angry and conflicted, aggressive, violent situation. So that's not spirituality. So we don't want to have that. But when it comes up, then you have to do something. And if you just suppress, then it's like rumbling in the background all the time, and it can burst out any time. So he says, okay, this is this energy of negative karma, and you have to not keep it in. Because if you suppress it, you're keeping it in. And if you accommodate whenever it surges forth, you have to be like the ocean. So when there's a tsunami in the ocean doesn't have any problem with the tsunami. The problem comes when the tsunami comes on the land. It takes over everything. And so this image of the ocean is really quite good for accommodating these huge surges of emotion. And the ocean can accommodate it, but if you're not the ocean, you can't. It takes over. Some people, they will take their anger and they will express it harmlessly. So they will use it. Some people use it in sport, because in sport you have to use a lot of force and energy to achieve your goal of sport. And so there are some people who will express it in the sport, like in football, kick and boxing, and I don't know. So it's a way to process it, express it harmlessly. Or some people, they'll punch trees. The trees say, okay, you can punch me, it's all right, but don't cut me down. But sometimes they do cut you down. So we say, okay, well, don't express your anger on a person and violate them. That's really not nice. But the best, I think, the best of all is to practice to create this big expansion in yourself, so that that energy can go through you and that you can actually bear that strong current passing through and let it pass out. And you do the same thing with pain from your bodily illness. You have to do it like that. And grief, someone you love very much, someone you're very attached to, they die or they betray you or something. There's a big energy of grief, and that also has to be processed. Otherwise, it can get expressed in a very aggressive way. So a BK who is very aggressive is smart to not suppress it. But then a lot of people will make criticisms. So, oh, you're a very aggressive BK. Okay, but so we don't want to be aggressive, and we don't want to be suppressive either. So I think we have to practice with these different powers. There's also the power to withdraw. And you can play around with that power as well. But I think for anger, the best powers is really tolerance and accommodation, because this is huge energy. But withdrawal is important, because there may be a circumstance or a situation that's very big, that's too big for you, and at that time it may be good to just withdraw. And Murli, a few days ago, Baba was talking about staying silent in a situation of aggression. And where it's really very big, that threat that's going on, this using the power to withdraw is also a reasonable response. So you have to use your power of discrimination to discern, okay, how am I going to deal with this situation? How big is this? What's going on here? How big am I? Do I confront it? Do I accommodate it? Do I withdraw? And you have to make the decision very quickly, because the moment when something will trigger your emotions, it's very fast. And so we have to have a very, very rapid response. And this is why when Baba talks about these things in the Murli, it's quite useful for us to, go deep into ourselves and really see, all of us have all kinds of emotions. This is totally normal, but what will trigger what in me, and what will I do with it? And when you're in your high self, your soul conscious self, how are you in those situations from that angle? And it usually will come and hit you when you're not in that stage. It'll come and hit you when you're in your ordinary stage. And then, you have to be really quick to change your stage, accommodate this, that, and the other. You have 1 second. So the exams are all exams of 1 second. And then he said, liberation in life in 1 second. So to me, that's a very good clue to help us to work with all these energies. And that if we are really with Baba and really have processed the knowledge to make it our own possession, so that we are able to apply the knowledge in a threatening situation that attacks us, and that we can do it within 1 second. That is called skill in action. And one of the sentences of the Gita is that yoga is skill in action. That's a definition of yoga. It's a to me, very, very interesting description and definition of yoga. Skill in action. That means you're on the battlefield and you're under attack. And when the bullet comes, or the spear comes, or the sword comes, whatever it is that comes, you have to be very fast to position yourself such that you can respond to that, and victory is guaranteed. So this is the definition of yoga that's there in the Gita, which I think is very relevant for us to really use this knowledge Baba has given us to prove that, we are skilled in very distressing, upsetting, problematical circumstances. So Raj Yoga is not done in the circumstances of life as a bowl of cherries. It doesn't matter where you go, your exams will follow you. Because we always get the exams we have to have. And exams are to let us know where we are weak, because either we don't know, or we're in denial, or we don't want to deal with it, or whatever it is. But Baba says, no, you must know, and you must not be in denial, and you must deal with it, because that's what this study is about. So if you're in this school, these are the exams, and you can't avoid them. You can't run away from them. You can delay them a little bit, but they will come. And so we need to use the power to face this reality, and to say to them, okay, come, because I'm here for the purpose of being the victorious jewel, so I have to take the exams. So we have a little time if anybody wants to say anything or make a question or comment or anything like that.
Did anybody write something?
Anybody write on the chat? No.
I saw that. Then Baba says,
Ben, I was wondering when Baba said finished, I forgot the word you used.
Oh, samapti.
Samapti. Was that at the beginning of Murli? What year was that? Can you say a little bit more about the context of that situation?
No, it was all of a sudden. It was about 2017 or 2018. And all of a sudden, at the end of that Murli, he said, okay, samapti. And we all said, what? Did he really say that? Yeah, he did. Then he carried on, but suddenly he'll drop these bombs.
Just checking, are you listening?
No, he was more than that, He said, okay, samapti. Yeah. I was there, and I remember very well that moment, and looking left and right to the sisters who were sitting with me, and it's like, what? Samapti. Finish. The end. Okay, now we have to process that.
Sister Christina said that it was in 2017.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Denise, when can I
It's
say?
recent, yeah.
I was there also, and that was the last time Baba came on the stage in 2017. You
Yes.
were also there. We met, and yes, and that's it. After 2017, Baba didn't come on the stage. Yeah.
Mm.
Baba says he is the Supreme Father and all souls are sons. Is that Baba's way of helping us to understand that, because daughters psychologically or socially, they are trained to be lesser and a little bit weaker and subservient and all of that. And so to
Definitely.
bring them.
Mm.
And in Murli also, many times it comes as mother and father, but majority time Baba is referred to as Supreme Father, Param Pita.
Yes, Mat, Pita, Bap, Dada is the combination of Shiv Baba and Brahma Baba. Brahma is the mother. Sometimes he says, this is my wife.
Yeah.
And so there are times he uses lots of different words to make us position ourselves differently in different moments. And there are times when he says, all of you are sitas. All of you are my brides. You're all taken over by Ravan, and I'm here to liberate you. And you have to pass through the test of fire and rejection and blah, blah, blah. So you're all sitas, you're all women. And then he says, you're all my sons. And the thing about the idea of being sons is claim your rights. And he really wants us to come out of this, what I call toxic conventional morality. And this is the foundation of the Manusmriti scripture, which divides everybody into males and females. And there's one law for men and a different law for women. And this has created a tremendous imbalance in the social system, and it's created trouble in everybody's karma. Because if you do karma according to the Manusmriti, your karma will be negative karma, but you will think that it's positive karma. So that has to be, or is being challenged by Shiv Baba, challenging everything. And then he says, okay, now you become my speakers, my instruments to do all this challenging. And he put Brahma Baba really on the spot, because Brahma Baba received very terrible treatment from the his community, because of being Shiv Baba's instrument. And it happens pretty much to the people who are prophets, you know, they don't get well treated, especially in their own land. And in the BK system, you know, Baba put all the money in the trust in the hands of young girls, and everyone was up in arms because, first of all, they're girls, and second of all, they're young, and you put them in this position of responsibility. Are you mad? Like, seriously mad? And he said, no, you see, because when I was doing this work about value education, I had to do a lot of background study for it. And I used to meet with sociology professors from different universities in India, because I needed to know how things are in India, like really. And so they referred me to different books and studies and so on, which I looked at. And what they found is that women generally do not spend money on themselves, but on the family, whereas men generally spend money on themselves and not much on the family. So they, in Shiv Baba's eyes, is better to give it to women, because there's not that much resources available. And so they will socially as well as internally, the orientation is to use the resources for the family. So he preferred that. And, you know, and the way people are socialized from childhood actually makes people skewed in their relationships. And there's other sociological studies that have been done in different parts of the world where children are not racist until you make them racist. Or they're not sexist until you make them sexist. So this is all socialization by a society which believes that males are superior, whites are superior, females are inferior, the darker your skin is, the more inferior you are. All that is a load of nonsense, but it is so strong in all the cultures. And Shiv Baba is really here to challenge this idea. So he says, look, your souls, and you have 42 female births and 42 male births, you know, and that's just that. So how do you tell me you're a male or you're a female? That's not true. But unless a person knows about a soul, they will not be able to make these challenges, because people, they evaluate things on the basis of sense perception. So when a child is born, they say, what is it, male or female? They never say, who is it? Who is this soul? They don't think like that. Whereas in Gyan, you want to know who someone is, not what someone is. And sometimes, you know, that there's age prejudice, gender prejudice, race prejudice, class prejudice, caste prejudice, how much money you have, what possessions you have, how much political power you have. All these things, people evaluate each other on the basis of that. And Baba says this is deceptive because it doesn't prove or disprove anything about the person. And so So he wants us to see with the third eye.
Sister Denise, there are these two streams, two realms, Yog and Bhog. Yog and Bhog. In Yog, one of the experiences is Anand, Sukh, Khushi, Mauj, and similar experiences are also talked about on the path of Bhog. I won't say path, but realm, or the way one lives one's life. So is that positive, negative? Is that soul and sensual? How would you comment on that?
Yeah. Well, when you say bhog, these are experiences. You know, Baba uses this word ati indriya sukh. So ati indriya sukh is always translated as supersensuous joy, and nobody has a clue what that means. So we have to investigate it, because that corresponds to yoga and emotions of happiness, pleasure, gratitude, all of these things. These are bhog. And these are feelings that you get from circumstances. When I was right in the very, very time before Gyan, immediately before Gyan, I had some visions. And one of them was the light, Shiv Baba light. And it was quite a long vision which went through various parts. But one part was that there was this force field of bliss that came from that light. And I was looking at this and saying, who are you? Now, what is this? And I never heard of anything like this before. I need full explanation. And it was, I think, quite helpful, because when I came into Gyan and I got really interested in the knowledge itself, and at that time, that's all there was in BK. It was just Gyan and yoga, and that's it, Bhog. And what I found is that when you churn the knowledge really deeply, then it takes you to this point of experiencing the meaning of those things that you're churning on. And for this, I refer you, as I often do, to the picture of the 4 stages of yoga which Jagdish Bhai had prepared, which is called initiation, then meditation, then concentration, and then realization. So the realization is when you actually experience the meaning of what he's saying as a visceral experience. And you don't experience it through your senses. You experience it in your mind as a result of the churning of the knowledge. And to me, that is supersensuous joy. And my conclusion was that the happiness that he's talking about, and the happiness that you want to have, is the happiness that comes from understanding something that you didn't understand before. And there are so many things to understand, but to get them to come into your mind as actual experiences means you have to pass through this process of yoga, initiation, meditation, concentration, and realization. And it's a very, very good explanation of yoga and how to practice yoga, how to churn to the point of getting that butter. which is the nourishment. And, there's this expression, there's no nourishment like happiness, this type of happiness, and then no illness worse than worry. Because when people are having the obsessive compulsive thoughts, it becomes waste thoughts and then negative thoughts, and then you make yourself miserable for free, for no very good reason. And he says, why do you do that to yourself? And the answer is because there's no willpower. And in the Murli, a couple of days or 3 days ago, he said, if you have adequate willpower, you'll be able to put a stop to them right away, because you will know there's faulty logic, stupid thoughts, stop it. Because if you don't, you're going to make yourself drain out all your spiritual energy for no very good reason, and make yourself miserable, depressed, and generally diminish yourself, and all of that for no other reason than stupid. Don't be stupid. Here's God, the intelligence of the wise, telling you how to function, and you want to do the opposite and make yourself miserable. Huh? What are you doing? Like that. So, but yet, there are so many who do it, and I think it's also because of the effect of religion, or the effect of a very toxic type of upbringing, where a person is made to feel less than. And there's a book which is called Less Than Zero. It's a really frightful book, scary book. You don't want to read that, but you should read that if you really want to know how people really are horrible to each other, and how people victimize young women. I don't know if it's available. It never became a famous book. It was famous for a few minutes, but it's a really good analysis of this system taken to a very far extreme. Yeah.
They also diminish young men.
They do diminish young men. They do. And it's because of this power struggle. And whoever's on the bottom of the pile will get stomped on. And they think, well, they'll become tough, but they sometimes become very aggressive. Sometimes become tough, but sometimes they become really self-annihilating. Yes.
The vice of lust gives pain from the beginning, middle, and end. Why beginning?
Well, especially for women, a lot of times in arranged marriages in India, they never give any sex education to the girl, so she has no idea what's going on her wedding night, and it's usually rape. And then she gets pregnant, which she doesn't know too much about. And then she has to give birth, which is extremely painful. And then she has to raise a child. And hopefully she gets good help from her mother-in-law. But there's just a lot of assault that goes on. And then you see in that, there's this habit of setting people against each other. So guys will have like 3 or 4 women, and they will set them against each other. And then they have other people who have separate families in different cities, and then they gets found out. And then you have infidelity, and you have people who want multiple wives, and you have people who are gay, and then they get forced to not be gay, and you get also a lot of raping of young boys. They get raped by their uncles, brothers, fathers, and that is very horrible, really horrible. And then they get forced to feel that they are the guilty party, and it's all this is done like under the cover of night, under the blankets, under secrecy, and a lot of girls get assaulted when they're very young, very, very young. Incest, a lot of incest, and it's very psychologically damaging. And hard to evaluate the extent of damage that is done to vast numbers of girls and boys, men and women, and then taunting and assault, insulting and blaming and shaming and naming. And then if a girl is not fertile, or even a guy is not fertile, his wife will be blamed. And if she's not fertile, she'll be blamed. And it's all around. Everything to do with sexuality is like a good reason to be extremely torturous and cruel and inhumane. And that is the world today. And everybody says, no, I am very nice and very good. Excuse me, you're not. And also it's taboo, you see. Nobody's allowed to talk about it. And then they say girls always lie. So if they say anything about it, they're lying. And if you accuse some very important man of something, like we recently had all this Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein and all of this drama, they settle it out of court. They don't want the publicity. They don't want anyone to know that the guys on top have a lot of problems. And so they want to hide it. And what's happening now, because it's called the time of reckoning, all of the nasties are coming out. So you have these whistleblowers who will try and make it known, and then they will get taken out. And so definitely Baba will say, beginning, middle, and end, you will have trouble. So, and then if you want to be pure and stay pure, and everybody will give you a hard time, and they will accuse you of faking it and not really being pure and this and that and the other. Lots of horrors. Many people are driven to suicide because of that. So you get a lot of suicides because of this harsh treatment on the done by holier than thou people who are not at all holier than thou. So what shall I say? It's a really nasty cosmic joke. So let us have a few moments with Baba, and see you tomorrow.